Before you even open your eyes fully, something is already speaking to you, not God, not peace, not clarity, but doubt. It whispers in subtle tones. Are you sure? What if you're wrong? What if you fail? Or what if they laugh? What if you're not enough? And before your feet ever touch the floor, a quiet war has already begun. This is not a war others see. This is not a battle announced publicly. This is the invisible tension between who you are, becoming, and what fear wants to keep you as. This morning, we are confronting that voice. Not aggressively, not emotionally, but spiritually. Because fear is rarely loud, it is persuasive. And persuasion, left unchecked, becomes paralysis. How many opportunities have dissolved because you waited for certainty? How many doors remained unopened because you were waiting for a sign that removed all risk? How many decisions were postponed not because you lacked ability, but because you feared imperfection? Be honest with yourself this morning. Is it really lack of clarity? Or is it fear dressed as wisdom? Confidence is not loud arrogance. It is not pretending you have no questions. It is not reckless action. Confidence is quiet alignment. It is movement while your hands are still slightly trembling. It is obedience before you feel fully ready. Fear wants guarantees. Confidence walks with trust. And today we choose to walk. Indecision drains more energy than failure ever could. Think about that. You can fail and recover. You can adjust. You can learn. But when you live suspended between choices, you burn spiritual energy every single day. You replay scenarios. You imagine outcomes. You rehearse conversations that may never happen. You negotiate with yourself endlessly, and slowly you grow tired. Not from doing too much, but from deciding nothing. There is a quiet misery in being stuck. You wake up aware that something needs to shift, but you keep postponing the shift. You feel the nudge, but you silence it. You sense the direction, but you overanalyze it. And here's the truth most people avoid. Indecision feels safer than movement. Because if you never choose, you never risk exposure. If you never step forward, you never face rejection. If you never try, you never fail publicly, but you also never grow. Fear convinces you that waiting is wisdom, but sometimes waiting is just avoidance wearing spiritual language. This is why so many talented, called gifted individuals remain unseen, not because they lacked opportunity, but because they waited for confidence to arrive before they moved. Confidence is not a prerequisite. It is a result. It grows as you walk. Fear is not always panic. It is often subtle self-doubt. It is imagining the worst outcome and believing it prematurely. It is assuming rejection before you speak. It is predicting collapse before you try. Fear magnifies risk. Confidence magnifies purpose. And whichever voice you entertain longer becomes your direction. Ask yourself gently this morning, what am I afraid of losing? Reputation? Comfort? Control? Approval? Fear often hides behind the desire to remain comfortable. But growth demands discomfort. Not chaos, not recklessness, but stretching. There is a version of you that exists beyond your hesitation. There is a stronger posture waiting on the other side of your decision. There is clarity waiting beyond your first step. But fear will always attempt to negotiate your cooling down to something smaller. It will say, stay where you are. It's stable. Don't speak up. It's safer. Don't try. You might fail, but you were not designed to live governed by what if. You were designed to live guided by conviction. Let's dismantle something important. You are not waiting for the perfect time. You are waiting to feel safe. But confidence does not come from safety. It comes from trust. Trust that even if things wobble, you will not collapse. Trust that even if you misstep, you will not be abandoned. Trust that even if the outcome shifts, your identity remains secure. Fear demands certainty before movement. Faith moves before certainty. That doesn't mean blind recklessness. It means grounded courage. Courage is not absence of fear. It is movement despite it. And this morning, you are not being called to be fearless. You are being called to be anchored. Because when your spirit is anchored, doubt loses authority. There is something heavier than failure. Regret. The regret of knowing you shrank yourself. The regret of knowing you silenced your voice. The regret of watching others walk paths you once dreamed about. And realizing the only difference was that they moved. Staying small feels manageable, but it slowly suffocates purpose. You begin to question your value. You begin to question your intuition. You begin to question your strength. And over time, hesitation becomes identity. But hear this clearly. You are not indecisive by nature. You have simply been rehearsing fear longer than confidence. And habits can be retrained. This morning is not about becoming someone else. It is about returning to the courage that already exists within you. Indecision is rarely about not knowing what to do. Most of the time, you already know. You sense it when you are alone. You recognize it when you stop distracting yourself. The real struggle is lack of trust in yourself. Somewhere along the way, you stopped believing your own discernment. Maybe you made a decision before that did not work out. Maybe someone questioned your judgment and their doubt became louder than your intuition. So now, before you choose anything, you interrogate yourself. You over-research. You over-ask. You overweight. Because if you gather enough information, maybe you can eliminate all risk. But that is not wisdom. That is self-protection. And self-protection, when excessive, suffocates growth. You cannot build confidence while constantly cross-examining yourself. Confidence grows when you prove to yourself that you can survive your own decisions, even imperfect ones. Let that settle. You are not afraid of choosing wrong. You are afraid of what it will say about you if it does not work. And that reveals something deeper. Your identity has become tied to outcomes. But your worth is not determined by results. It is rooted in who you are becoming. And growth always includes recalibration. You must rebuild trust with yourself. And that begins in quiet moments. Start asking yourself smaller questions daily. What feels aligned today? What feels forced? What drains me unnecessarily? What energizes me naturally? Listen without judgment. When you repeatedly ignore your inner discernment, you train yourself to doubt it. When you honor it in small things, you strengthen it for larger decisions. Self-trust is built through consistency. If you promise yourself rest, take it. If you promise yourself discipline, follow through. If you promise yourself growth, act on it. Every small kept promise repairs internal credibility. Indecision weakens when integrity strengthens. And integrity is not public, it is private alignment. You begin walking in confidence not when everyone affirms you, but when you are no longer at war with yourself. Let's confront something uncomfortable. Clarity rarely comes in full. Most divine direction is revealed in steps, not entire maps. You want the full blueprint, but growth often requires walking with partial vision. Imagine standing in early dawn. You cannot see miles ahead, but you can see enough for the next step. That is how faith operates. Not recklessly, but progressively. Fear says, wait until you see everything. Confidence says, move with what you see now. If you wait for total certainty, you will wait indefinitely. Because life shifts, circumstances change. Even after you receive clarity, adjustments will still be required. Confidence is not about knowing every detail. It is about trusting that you can adapt. And adaptation is strength. You do not need to see 10 years ahead. You need courage for today. Take the next step. Momentum builds assurance. Stillness breeds doubt. Confidence is not a personality trait. It is a discipline. You train yourself to decide. Start with smaller choices. Do not linger over trivial matters endlessly. Choose. Act. Adjust if necessary. The more you practice decision-making, the less power fear retains. Indecision grows when you treat every choice like a permanent verdict. Not every decision defines your destiny. Some simply teach you, but when you dramatize every move, pressure increases. And pressure fuels hesitation. Release the need to be flawless. Choose wisely, but choose. Confidence strengthens through repetition. And soon, what once felt terrifying becomes natural. There is another voice we must address. The internal critic. The one that replays past mistakes. The one that predicts humiliation. The one that compares you relentlessly to others. It sounds rational, but it is often fear rehearsed as analysis. Ask yourself, is this voice helping me grow? Or is it keeping me contained? There is a difference between reflection and self-condemnation. Reflection teaches. Condemnation paralyzes. Confidence requires mental discipline. When critical thoughts arise, examine them. Is this true? Is this constructive? Is this rooted in growth or insecurity? Do not accept every thought as truth. Fear often disguises itself as logic. But wisdom produces peace, not panic. If a thought leaves you tense, frozen, or shrinking, it is not guidance. It is intimidation. Confidence grows when you learn to filter what you entertain mentally. You do not silence fear by arguing endlessly with it. You silence it by moving anyway. Action quiets doubt faster than contemplation ever will. Picture yourself 6 months from now. Not perfect, not flawless, but consistent, decisive, steady. You wake up with direction. You move without rehearsing every possible disaster. You speak without shrinking. You act without seeking constant validation. That version of you is not imaginary. It is formed through daily courageous choices. Confidence compounds, just like fear does. Every time you hesitate unnecessarily, fear strengthens. Every time you act with intention, confidence strengthens. You are building something either way. The question is, which direction are you building in? There is a dangerous confusion many people live with. They mistake comfort for peace. Comfort feels familiar. Peace feels anchored. Comfort keeps everything predictable. Peace steadies you even when things shift. You have avoided certain decisions not because they were wrong, but because they threatened your comfort. Comfort says, stay where you understand the terrain. Do not risk being misunderstood. Do not outgrow the environment that applauds your smaller version. But growth demands disruption, not chaos. There is a holy discomfort that signals expansion. It stretches your thinking. It challenges your patterns. It exposes weaknesses so they can be strengthened. And if you keep choosing comfort, you will unconsciously sabotage elevation. Look at your life honestly. Where have you settled because it feels manageable? Where have you reduced your vision to avoid tension? Where have you stayed quiet to avoid resistance? Comfort can become a silent prison, and prisons are rarely announced loudly. They are decorated nicely. Confidence requires leaving rooms you've outgrown, not with arrogance, but with obedience to your own development. Sometimes indecision is not about the choice itself. It is about visibility. If you act boldly, people will notice. If you pursue something larger, expectations increase. If you succeed, scrutiny follows. And visibility exposes you. Some part of you prefers small spaces because they feel safer. You can hide there. You can experiment quietly. You can fail privately. But you were not designed to remain hidden. The fear of being seen is often the fear of being evaluated. And evaluation threatens ego. But let's dismantle that illusion. People will have opinions whether you move or not. They will judge your stillness. They will judge your progress. So why surrender your destiny to opinions that shift daily? Confidence grows when you detach from applause and criticism equally. You are not walking for validation. You are walking because stagnation is no longer acceptable. And when you release the need to be universally approved, freedom expands. Be honest. How many decisions have been delayed because you were calculating how others would react? Will they support it? Will they think I've changed? You have. Growth always changes you. If your evolution does not unsettle anyone, you may not be stretching far enough. People who are comfortable with your smaller version will feel threatened by your expansion, and that is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is alignment. You cannot walk confidently while dragging everyone's expectations behind you. At some point, you must decide. Is your life directed by conviction or by consensus? Consensus is safe. Conviction is powerful, and power requires accountability. If you want confidence, you must release the addiction to pleasing everyone, because pleasing everyone leads to betraying yourself. And betrayal of self destroys inner authority. Now let's elevate this. Spiritual boldness is not loud performance. It is not dramatic declarations. It is steady obedience. It is rising early when you do not feel motivated. It is choosing discipline when excuses sound persuasive. It is speaking truth gently but firmly. Boldness is internal stability. When your spirit is grounded, you do not react impulsively. You respond intentionally. You are not easily shaken by criticism. You are not intoxicated by praise. You move because you are anchored. Fear produces urgency. Boldness produces patience. Fear demands immediate reassurance. Boldness trusts timing. And spiritual boldness grows when your identity is rooted in something deeper than temporary outcomes. When you know who you are, hesitation weakens. Because your worth is not negotiating with every result. Why does this matter in the morning? Because morning sets direction, before the noise enters, before notifications demand attention, before other people's emotions pull at you. Morning is where authority is established. If fear governs your first thoughts, it will echo through your decisions. If alignment governs your first thoughts, stability follows you. This is why you cannot casually drift into your day. You must enter it intentionally. Confidence is reinforced daily. It is not built once. It is cultivated. This morning you are not just listening. You are recalibrating. You are deciding that hesitation will no longer dominate. You are deciding that doubt will no longer narrate your potential. You are deciding that waiting endlessly is no longer disguised as wisdom. You are walking, not recklessly, not arrogantly, but intentionally. Fear does not control you by force. It controls you by agreement. Read that again slowly in your spirit. Every time you say, maybe I'm not ready, maybe I should wait, maybe I'm not capable, you are signing small internal contracts. And contracts shape behavior. Fear cannot dominate someone who refuses to agree with it. But you have entertained it. You have reasoned with it. You have allowed it to sit at the decision-making table. And because it felt cautious and analytical, you labeled it wisdom. But fear often disguises itself as prudence. There is a difference between wise preparation and fear-based delay. Wise preparation moves you forward steadily. Fear-based delay keeps you circling. Ask yourself honestly, have I been preparing, or have I been postponing? Have I been seeking clarity, or have I been avoiding discomfort? Agreement with fear looks subtle. It sounds like next month, after I feel more confident, when things calm down. But confidence grows through movement, not postponement. And the longer you agree with fear, the more natural hesitation becomes. Today, you revoke that agreement. You are not erasing fear's existence. You are removing its authority. There is something else holding you hostage. A past decision. A risk that did not produce what you expected. A step you took that led to disappointment. And now, before every new choice, that memory whispers, remember what happened last time? Failure becomes evidence against future courage. But that interpretation is flawed. A past outcome is not proof of incapability. It is proof of participation. You acted, you tried, you moved. And growth often requires missteps. You cannot demand experience without allowing mistakes. If every decision had to guarantee success, you would never attempt anything significant. Release the narrative that one outcome defines your competence. It does not. It refined you. It strengthened discernment. It built resilience. If you learned, you did not lose. And if you grew, you did not fail. Confidence does not require a spotless history. It requires a resilient spirit. And resilience is born from rising again. Now we address something foundational. Confidence cannot be sustained if identity is unstable. If you are constantly questioning your worth, every decision will feel threatening, because failure will feel personal. But when identity is anchored spiritually, outcomes lose their power to define you. You are not your last result. You are not your worst mistake. You are not the hesitation you have been rehearsing. You are a person growing in wisdom, capacity, and spiritual authority. Identity precedes behavior. If you see yourself as fragile, you will move cautiously. If you see yourself as called and capable, you will move intentionally. Confidence is clarity about who you are. It is understanding that your life has direction beyond temporary discomfort. It is remembering that growth is part of your design. You cannot walk boldly if you secretly believe you are unqualified. Today you confront that belief. Where did you learn that you were inadequate? Who told you that your voice was too much? Who convinced you that playing small was safer? Those narratives were never divine assignments. They were human projections. And you do not carry them forward. Authority is not loud dominance. It is calm conviction. When you walk with authority, you do not rush. You do not over-explain. You do not seek constant reassurance. You decide. You act. You adjust when necessary. Authority grows when your internal voice becomes stronger than external noise. That does not happen overnight, but it begins with a decision. A declaration that you will no longer shrink to accommodate fear. A declaration that growth will no longer be postponed because it feels uncomfortable. You were not designed to drift. You were designed to lead your own life with alignment. And leadership begins internally. If you cannot govern your thoughts will govern you. If you cannot discipline your hesitation, it will define your days. Authority requires responsibility. Responsibility requires maturity. And maturity requires choosing growth over comfort repeatedly. This is not about becoming fearless. It is about becoming anchored. When you are anchored spiritually, fear loses its volume. It may still speak, but it no longer commands. There is always a threshold, a moment where reflection turns into decision. This is that moment. You have examined the hesitation. You have identified the patterns. You have acknowledged the agreements. Now you step forward internally before you ever step forward externally. Confidence is not loud at first. It is quiet resolve. It is saying, I will not postpone my growth again. I will not let uncertainty dictate my identity. I will act with the clarity I have today. You do not need to know everything. You need to trust enough to move. And movement changes atmosphere. When you move, doubt weakens. When you move, clarity increases. When you move, momentum builds. This is your threshold. Not dramatic, not emotional. but decisive. Now let us pray. Father, this morning I come before you awake, aware, and intentional, not drifting into this day, not stumbling into my responsibilities, not surrendering my thoughts to fear before the sun fully rises. I come with purpose. You have given me breath again. You have granted me another morning. That alone tells me that my life still carries assignment. So today I refuse to approach this day timidly. I refuse to let doubt narrate my direction. I refuse to let hesitation dominate my choices. Father, I acknowledge something honestly before you. There have been moments where I partnered with fear. Moments where I delayed when I should have acted. Moments where I shrank when I should have spoken. Moments where I questioned myself repeatedly instead of trusting the wisdom you have been building within me. But this morning, I break agreement with that pattern.
Fear will not sit at my decision-making table today.
Fear will not disguise itself as caution in my mind. Fear will not masquerade as humility in my spirit. You have not shaped me to live confined. You have not sustained me this far to keep me small. Strengthen my discernment today. Sharpen my thinking. Stabilize my emotions. Quiet internal chaos that tries to rise before clarity. If a decision stands before me, give me steadiness. If uncertainty surrounds me, give me anchoring. If opportunity stretches me, give me courage to step. Father, remind me that confidence is not arrogance. It is trust in the growth you have cultivated inside me. Remind me that I do not need perfect conditions to move forward. I do not need universal approval to obey conviction. I do not need guaranteed outcomes to take responsible action. Guard my mind today. When past failures attempt to replay themselves, silence their distortion. Let me remember lessons without reliving shame. Let me grow without carrying condemnation. If I face criticism today, anchor me. If I face praise today, humble me. Do not let either control my identity. My identity is rooted deeper than opinions. Father, remove the addiction to comfort. If there are spaces I have outgrown, give me courage to leave them gracefully. If there are conversations I have avoided, give me calm boldness to engage them. If there are opportunities I have hesitated toward, give me disciplined movement. Teach me to act with partial clarity. Teach me to trust you step by step. I do not need the entire blueprint today. I need obedience for the next instruction. Stabilize my heart so I do not rush impulsively. Stabilize my spirit so I do not freeze unnecessarily. Balance me. Where fear tries to exaggerate risk, bring perspective. Where overthinking tries to drain momentum, bring simplicity. Father, restore self-trust within me. Where I have doubted my judgment, rebuild it. Where I have broken promises to myself, strengthen my integrity. Help me follow through on what I commit to. Let discipline grow quietly within me. Let consistency reshape my character. I declare this. I will not postpone my growth again. I will not shrink to preserve comfort. I will not allow insecurity to dictate my obedience. This day will not be ruled by comparison. This day will not be ruled by imagined outcomes. I walk into this morning anchored in identity, anchored in direction, anchored in truth. If anxiety attempts to surface, I will breathe and remember that you are steady. If doubt whispers, I will answer it with movement. If uncertainty lingers, I will not collapse under it. I choose courage today, not loud performance, not reckless action, but quiet, grounded courage. Let my words carry clarity. Let my posture carry assurance. Let my actions reflect maturity. Father, align my spirit with discipline. Align my decisions with wisdom. Align my steps with purpose. I refuse to drift through this day. I enter it consciously. I enter it strengthened. I enter it aware that growth requires participation. And I will participate. Guide me. Correct me if necessary. Redirect me if needed. But do not let me stagnate. Do not let fear reclaim authority over my direction. Let this morning mark a shift from hesitation to intentional action, a shift from overthinking to disciplined movement, a shift from self-doubt to spiritual confidence. I am not powerless. I am not fragile. I am not defined by my previous delays. I am growing. I am strengthening. I am walking forward. And today I will move with clarity where it exists and faith where it does not. Thank you for sustaining me. Thank you for refining me. Thank you for strengthening me internally in ways no one else can see. This day belongs to you, and I walk into it boldly. Amen. Before you leave this moment, ask yourself, what decision have I been postponing that requires movement today? Not next week, not eventually, today. Confidence does not appear magically. It is built through repeated obedience to conviction. Fear weakens when action strengthens. And you are no longer rehearsing hesitation. You are training boldness. Walk today with steadiness. Walk today without dramatizing every unknown. Walk today remembering that clarity increases with movement. And this morning was not emotional motivation. It was internal recalibration.